Hello, this is Mark Leslie Lefebvre, host of the Stark Reflections podcast. I just wanted to let you know before we get into this interview with Eric Bryan Moore that Eric was in a spot where the Wi-Fi was a little bit inconsistent. So during this video interview, there was a few times where we end up talking over one another because of the delay in the signal that was happening. I managed to edit most of that out in the audio only feed, which appears at starkreflections.ca. So that kind of works out there. But here for the raw video, it was just too much to do that editing. And so this is the raw video interview with Eric Bryan Moore from episode 194 of the Stark Reflections podcast. Eric, welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm so thrilled. I mean, this is the first time recently that we've actually spoken to one another, but I'm used to hearing your voice making my words sound so much better because you are one of the first audiobook narrators I've ever had the privilege of getting to work with. I think that's, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's cool. Glad to be in the first.
So I did.
Yeah,
Sorry, we have a bit of a lag there.
yeah. I was going to say it was funny because I saw you for the first time a couple weeks ago, and after reading a few of your stories, to see you, it was like, oh, there he is. That's your words are coming through my mouth sometimes, well, through my head and my imagination, and then to see him like, you look just like me. We're both bald with glasses and facial hair.
Exactly, yeah. And yet you have a much better voice. So I discovered you.
That's for years.
I discovered you through the good folks at Findaway Voices. So when I was loading a project, I think that project was Active Reader. One of the, I guess the project manager that's behind the scenes that assigned you to be the narrator, or gave me a choice of voices, I think, and then we narrowed it down to you, and then I since hired you for another project as well, and then there's another one coming up. So how did you get into audiobook narration?
Yeah. That's a funny story. Well, it's not that funny. So I was an actor originally from California and from San Francisco. And I was doing a lot of stage there. And I realized that if I want to really make a go of it, I'm going to have to move to either New York or Los Angeles. And neither of those places really appealed to me. And I couldn't really make a decision. So I just procrastinated and I decided to go to Japan for a year. And I ended up living there for 6 years, opened a bar, met a Brazilian girl. Then I moved here to Brazil, where I've been for 10 years. And about when I first came here, I didn't know what to do. I was teaching English. I was taking buses all over Sao Paulo for hours and hours every day, just kind of miserable. I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and then I got into audiobooks. And I kept thinking to myself, man, I really miss acting, and I'll never be an actor here because I'm never going to be good enough at Portuguese. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And this entire time, for like 1 year of almost falling into depression because I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, I was listening to audiobooks. And then one day I was on a bus and it just kind of hit me. I was like, why don't I do this? So, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to do that. And for 1 year, I lived in a place where I couldn't even record books. So I just studied writing. Because I was like, well, maybe if I study writing, that'll make me a better narrator when the time comes. Then we moved to this house where there was a little closet that I could use from like midnight until 5 a.m. to record. And I think that's when I first did your stuff. I was there. And finally, I got
this. You did it during the witching hour? Like you did it like after midnight?
Yeah, because the area I was living in was just too loud, and the walls weren't blocking the vibrations from the trucks in the street.
Oh, wow.
And it took a while to get to this new setup. But yeah. That's kind of how I fell into it.
Wow, there's so much to unpack there. So when you started as a narrator, where did you go? Like where was there a place to? Is there a group you join, or how do you get involved? How did you learn all that stuff?
Yeah, I just jumped on ACX and I watched all the tutorials they had, and then I joined a group on Facebook for narrators through ACX. I just watched as many videos as I could, and I listened to as many audiobooks as I could, and a lot of trial and error. A lot of error.
A little bit more error than trial. That sounds like my
Yeah.
writing career.
Yeah, it's pretty much just learn the hard way every time.
Wow. So I want to go back now because you talked about being an actor. No, you were a stage actor, theater. Was it through high school? When did all that start?
Yeah, it actually started. So I was a freshman in high school, and I was in my English class, and the English teacher was Mr. Brown. And that day we were reading of Mice and Men, and he had everyone read out loud for like 1 minute, like two paragraphs. They'd switch and switch and switch, and finally he came to me, and I was so shy and nervous. And it was like I think we joined two classes that day, so it was like 60 kids. I just stared down at the book and I just read and read and read, and he never stopped me until the bell rang. So I ended up reading for like 10 or 15 minutes. And then as I was leaving, he grabbed me and he said, "Come with me," kind of in a very terse. I was a little bit scared. I was like, "Oh my God."
I gave away the ending. There were no rabbits. No.
I was like, maybe I went too far, because he stopped me at one point. He's like, no, do the voices. And so I like, oh, so I tried. And he dragged me to the theater teacher. And he said, "I got a real one here, real talent." And he left me there.
Wow.
And then so I joined the acting class, and I absolutely hated it because I was so shy.
Right.
Terribly shy. Like I couldn't even talk to myself in the mirror. I was so shy. I don't know where that came from. And I hated it. So I did it for a half of a year. And then I was like, I'm not doing that again, ever. And I didn't until I was 20 years old in college. I was studying cameras and camera work and lighting.
Right.
And one of the directors said, "Hey, can you help me with something?" So I helped him with some video stuff. And he dragged me to the theater department, and he put me in Our Town. I think I played George in Our Town. And then that was it.
Wow. So the two different people, Mr. Brown in high school, and then this director in college, recognized some sort of innate talent in shy Eric, who couldn't even look up from the page when he was reading, and yet they found something there. There's got to be people who have that ability to discover, like the diamonds in the rough.
Yeah, I guess so. And, for some reason, I don't know why it just never clicked for me, because I always, whenever I was a kid, my dad would take me to the movies. Whatever movie I saw, that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. If it was Die Hard, well, I wanted to be a cop, saving the world from bank robbers pretending to be terrorists. If it was I wanted to be a doctor. I just always wanted to be the guy or the character in the movie. And I don't know why it took so long to click.
Wow.
But yeah, thank God for Mr. Brown and my friend Leo, who kind of figured it out for me.
That's fantastic. So I wanna go back to something that you said that really intrigued me, because you were learning about wanting to do narration, and there was some limits in terms of being able to start. You took the time to go and study writing. What did you study? How did you approach that?
Yeah, so I found a website called Writers Village University. And it's just a bunch of people that want to learn to write and study writing. And so I think one guy started it like in 1996 or 7, and he just put a bunch of classes up there, and you kind of learn as you go. And yeah, there was different things like studying poetry, studying the hero's journey, actually writing and getting peer reviews and stuff like that. I didn't know what else to do to prepare. I knew that I was like, I saw it. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. But I had no idea, other than sitting in a corner by myself and reading out loud, which probably would have been helpful too. I had no idea how else to prepare. So I just took some writing classes, and that was fun.
So did that actually make you feel prepared when you were ready to get started?
No.
Did you end up writing a great American novel or anything like that?
No, I'm terrible at writing. I have one short story that I'm proud of, and that's it. And I kind of worked on I got some outlines for like a book that I'll probably never actually write. I find writing hard work. That's the hard stuff to create. I think that's the real magic, to create something from nothing and then be able to put that on paper so that someone else can have that movie run in their head. That's amazing to me.
Cool. Awesome. And you help get it into get stories into people's heads in a different format, which is awesome. So you were starting off, we'll jump ahead again to you hung up a shingle on ACX, you watched some videos, you learned some stuff. How did you find work, or did you wait for it to find you? Was it a combination of things?
I auditioned a lot. I got like I think 12 rejections in a row before I got my first book. It was a huge book. It was Warren Adler, All the President's Men. The guy that wrote War of the Roses hired me for my first book.
Oh my God.
And
Wow.
it took me like 2 months to complete it because
Wow.
I didn't know what I was, I didn't, I, I'm still learning where am I supposed to be with the microphone? Is it supposed to be here? And then I got to learn how to use the software and then the editing. It took a while, but yeah, they hired me to do one of his books, and they hired me again a couple of years later. So yeah, I guess it wasn't too bad.
They must have liked what they had. And then, so is it a case? So a lot of indie authors, when they start off, they go, okay, well, no one's heard of me, so I'm going to sell my books for, really cheap, not $15 or $10. Like, I'm going to start at $3 or $4 or $2 or whatever. Is it the same thing with the narrator, where you're like, okay, I'm cutting my chops, and I guess the range of what
Yeah.
is the going rate. Did you start off with like, well, okay, I just need to get some experience? Is it a case where you're like, okay, I'll go for cheaper than I really want to? Did you have to do something like that?
Yes. There's a whole conversation about this in narrators groups. But
Right.
yeah, so in the beginning, I was working a lot under the royalty share deals that
Oh,
ACX
ACX.
has.
Okay. And you had to
So
take a chance, right? You're doing 30, 40 hours of work to get, maybe you'll
yeah,
make some money on it one day.
yeah, and usually not.
Yeah. So
Almost,
what is the ratio? Is it like for every 10 books, one of them is like, yay, we did it. I made some money.
yeah, about that.
Wow.
Yeah, about that. And yeah, I've done a lot of romance under a pseudonym. The pseudonym is DC Cole.
Okay.
It's not a secret pseudonym. I just didn't know what else to do, so I
Right,
came up
because
with
well,
that.
then that if you see DC Cole, you're going to get a romance narrator. But that's a funny
Yeah.
thing when you mention that, because I had a writers group, a readers group, reach out to me, and they discovered me because they loved you, and they were following your sexy voice, and they because again, some of those early reviews of Active Reader, they're like Twilight Zone type fiction, and
Yeah.
it was just cute to see. Well, I've never heard of this Mark Leslie character, but we're a fan of Eric's, and that's how I discovered him. But he's not bad, this Mark guy, and I thought that was such a eye-opening thing for me as a writer, because usually people found out about you somehow, but they found out about me because they were following your pseudonym, DC Cole, and they just loved your voice so much. They're like, well, what else has he got?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I still don't get that, but it's cool.
Well, but it's kind of like, I mean, you do have a really great voice, and it's kind of like, I'd love to hear Samuel L. Jackson read that because I like his voice, or James Earl Jones, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I think there are some people that you could listen to them if they have a beautiful voice, beautiful accent. You're like, oh, I can listen to them say anything, even yell at me.
Yeah, I guess so. But would you go out of it? Would you go to a genre? I guess you still have to like the genre, right?
Yeah,
Like
or it has to
there are
be,
narrators
yeah, close enough to
there
what you,
are
it's not
narrators
like
cool.
really, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Like I'm
true.
not going to listen to romance books. Like I have nothing bad to say about romance. It pays most of my bills to this day, but I'm not going to spend my free time listening to romance. I
Right.
prefer science fiction and fantasy and horror and those things. And there are narrators that I love and I follow, but I'm not going to, if they read romance, I'm not going to follow them to it. So for me, to have them follow me into another genre is I'm kind of, wow, that's really flattering.
That is it's kind of like, well, I like this actor, but this actor's in a type of movie I never watch romantic comedies, but I like this actor. Maybe I'll give it a shot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there's that could be one of the things. Or, I mean, for example, I'm not a fan of Stephen King's fantasy, and I've tried to follow him into the
Yeah.
gunslinger and some of the fantasy stuff he does, and it's just like, and I love everything he writes, but that's where it stops. I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I can't do this. I tried. I wonder if it's as
It is
similar to with,
interesting.
yeah.
It is interesting. I read so I read a lot of Stephen King as well, and I read the whole Gunslinger, and there were moments where I was like, I don't know what we're doing here. This is the moments like, this isn't, Jim, I don't know. Now you're putting yourself in the book. I don't know what we're doing here, King.
Yeah. So how long did it take before things started to actually hit where you went, okay, I can actually make a go of this?
I don't know that it has yet.
Okay. All right. Oh, so it's pure freelance, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I haven't worked with any big time publishers yet. Um, it's almost all freelance,
Okay. And are you, is
which
the
is
work
kind of crazy. Like, so you mentioned Findaway. Findaway has given me a lot of work, but out of like the big five, the big publishing companies, I haven't gotten any work.
really?
So it's all still kind of developing. But I made a choice, and that might not have been the best choice. About a year and a half ago, I stopped for all romance because I wanted to build this. So I'm kind of, even though I'm 5 years in, I'm really kind of half in again.
Okay.
So maybe that's it.
Yeah, well, because I guess it was paying the bills, but if it wasn't satisfying, you have to balance that too, right? Some of the work.
Yeah. Yeah, because the problem with narrating books is I don't get to read for fun anymore because I'm always preparing books, preparing accents, and then I've got to perform them, and then so I'm constantly working on the next project, so I don't have any downtime to read for fun. So I decided like maybe I should just start trying to do the books I enjoy reading for in my spare time. So
It's the
that's kind
dream
of
we've
where
all
I'm
had.
headed
I
now.
get paid to read the books I like to read. So I
Yeah,
just have
right.
to record what I'm reading. So that, see, that leads to an interesting question then. So how, a couple things is, how do you approach work now? Like you look for things to audition for? Are there some clients that come back to you that say, well, okay, I'd like you, I've got two more books coming out. Can I pre-book you? Like, does that kind of stuff happen?
Yeah, yeah, both of those. So I still audition. I try to audition for something like once a month,
Okay.
um, sometimes more if I see something that really interests me. And then I've been pretty lucky to have a lot of repeat clients. Like
Right.
I've been really fortunate. So
Cool. And then a question
luckily,
I
people don't hate me
know,
yet.
sorry.
Said people don't hate me yet.
I guess a question writers who are listening to this are probably asking right now is like, well, how much does he charge an hour typically?
Yeah, so I'm right at 250 an hour right
Okay.
now. 250 per finished hour,
Okay.
that's basically the professional minimum, the according to SAG-AFTRA, which is the union.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Are you a member of SAG-AFTRA? ACTRA? Yeah.
No, no. I hope to be one day,
Okay.
but
But
I
you have to charge
it's
a minimum rate
I
in
think
order to.
yeah, and like even though I say like I charge 250, I don't always charge 250. Like if a client just can't make it, I go down to help them out. So
Right.
like I would love to be union someday, but it just hasn't happened yet. And it's tough. I live in Brazil, so I can't get the medical benefits of it.
Oh, right.
So I don't know.
Have
And
there
then
so
you gotta sorry, go ahead.
continue that thought.
So you have to make a certain amount to be in the union, and then you got to pay like a portion or a percentage of that. And for somebody that hasn't worked with any publishers yet, I don't feel, I don't really feel secure enough to be like, okay, I'm part of the union now, and I only charge this minimum rate and up. And so now that's just what I don't feel secure enough to do that.
Right. Okay.
I
So,
hope to someday.
well, yeah, of course, they're awesome. So I was going to ask because from the point of view of an author, Findaway Voices has a program called Voices Share, where the narrator takes half of their regular
Yeah.
going rate and then gets a royalty share. So the way it looks to me as a writer, well, unlike the narrator having to take all the risk in a payment split, where, okay, I'm going to do 30, 40 hours or more of work on this book, probably 50, 60, depending on the length of the project. And then maybe I'll make some money. Yeah, has that worked out in any positive way for you since they've launched that program?
I've never used it.
Oh, really? Okay.
It just hasn't. Just has yeah, yeah. They haven't come across any offers that with that for me. I
Again, they
don't
have to
know
look
if I
worthwhile, I
clicked.
guess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. No, because I haven't yet talked to it. Well, not that I talk to a lot of narrators, but I haven't yet talked to a lot of narrators that have taken advantage of it, because they on the extreme, it's like all risk on the narrator's part. Like, yeah, I'm going to do all this investment and maybe I'll make money, as opposed to at least with Voices Share, you're like, well, I get half the money, and yeah, I roll the dice and hope I can make some more on it. I was just curious about that.
There is a similar program on ACX that I've used called a Royalty Share Plus, where they'll give you like $25 to $75 per hour per finished
Okay.
hour, and then you split the royalty. And I've done that numerous times because
Oh,
it
when
covers,
did they launch that?
all production costs. So it'll cover the editor and the proofer and all the mastering. So it covers all the post production. So then I can pay off everyone that I work with, and then it's just my performance and stuff that I got to worry about. So
Oh,
I'm
wait a
not
second.
like a lot of times.
So you said you're paying, so you're paying production people like for the final product after you've recorded it, right?
Yeah, at the very minimum, I always work with a proofer, someone that will listen to it and make sure I'm not screwing things up.
Oh, wait,
And
so
you
you
have
do your own proofing before you hand it back to the author?
oh yeah, definitely. So I outsource that because you don't know what you don't know, and so if I've been mispronouncing a word all my life, I'd rather someone else catch it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, of
And it's
course.
shocking how often that comes up. Like, really, that's how you say that word?
Yeah, I've always, in my head, it always sounded so great. Awesome. So, you and I were chatting recently because you've just launched a new pet project. Can you talk a little bit about what you've just launched?
Yeah, I guess I don't like free time, so I launched a podcast called Pocket Pulp. And the idea is it's a short story podcast where each Monday morning I release a new story from 30 minutes to an hour long. I just put it out there in the universe.
Wow.
That's kind of it. And the idea is to I've opened it so it's like all genres,
Okay.
but I'm trying to make it, it's not really pulp, even though the name is pulp. I'm just trying to go for fun, entertaining stories.
Okay. So, and it's, yeah, it doesn't matter what the genre is. It's just fun, entertaining stories. So, and that's like a regular podcast, weekly feed where, how do you decide what the content is for the pulp that you use?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I got a couple ladies helping me to help read through stories for me, to help kind of pick, like, they think this one's good. And then right now I've just approached writers I know, like yourself and a couple other writers that, yeah. And yeah, I've been lucky so far.
Oh,
I got
wow.
a nice array of like fantasy, science fiction, and I'm going to put in my one short story that I like.
Oh, cool. So we'll actually get to hear your story in your voice. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about it because the story that I like, it was a challenge. Like, I want to see if I can write from a woman's POV realistically.
Okay.
So then I take that a step farther. I'm going to actually narrate it as well.
Wow, that's interesting. So this is a weekly podcast. So I guess I'm going to ask this on behalf of writers who are listening now, going, "Oh, cool! Can I send him a short story for consideration? Are you open to accepting like unsolicited potential submissions?"
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I'm committed to do this for at least 1 year
Okay.
before I kind of step back and be like, okay, was it? Is this worth it? If if just like 20 people are listening, then after a year I'll probably discontinue it. But I want to do it for at least a year.
Right.
And so I need 52 stories, and I have 7 recorded.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, please.
So I guess
If
the
people have a
thing.
story between 5,000,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, if someone has a story between 5 to 10,000 words that they like, they can send it to me at pocketpulpsubmission@gmail.com.
Cool. We'll put a link to that
And I'll try
in the
to
show
get my,
notes. at starkreflections.ca. So how does that work? So let's say for example, I sent you a story. We don't know if I have or not yet, but let's say I've sent you a story. What's the deal with that? Because you are a professional narrator. So you record it, you put it in the podcast feed. Um, can I use that? Is it something that I get back, or is it just like, hey, cool, go listen to my story in Eric's podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have it. I would love to run this like an e-magazine someday where I can actually pay the writer for their work and maybe even outsource to like paid narrators. But for right now, it's just me
Right.
and and a small team just trying to make it happen. And so I can't pay writers. So what I do is I give them the audio to use however they want.
This sounds
They
like a
want to.
dream come true for a writer who can't afford to work with a narrator yet, but wants the experience. Knock, knock, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, listeners. I've hired Eric. He's awesome. If you've got short fiction and you've been tempted to turn it in, why not check this out? I'm hoping that gets you a few more submissions in
Yeah,
the
that'd be
next
awesome.
little while.
That'd be awesome.
So the thing I have to ask, because I put my business hat on and say, okay, I'm getting this free weekly podcast of great short fiction. I get to listen to a different story every week. Wonderful. Is there something at the end, like, are you doing an ad read for your services as a professional narrator in the podcast at least?
Not yet. Maybe
Okay.
someday.
Okay.
I don't know. I figure worst case scenario, every episode is an advertisement for me.
Oh, on
If
its
I'm doing
own.
a great job.
Okay.
Yeah. If I do a great job telling the story, then people are like, oh, who's that guy? So worst case scenario, every time I do a story, it's advertisement for me and for the writer. So I try to build the episode as like, check out this writer. They're awesome. The intro is super fast. It's 2 minutes long. Get into the story. The outro is 1 minute long, and it's all about the writer with a quick thing at the end, like, hey, my name's Eric Bryan Moore. Check out my website if you want to talk to me. That's it.
So that seems like even more of a dream come true for a writer who has short fiction, who has never gotten into audio and wants to experience what it's like to hear a professional narrator read their story and get free advertising for their work. I mean, it sounds like a dream come true for a writer. I'm just saying, to my listeners, again,
Yeah.
blatant, not wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. Check this out.
Yeah, well, I was trying to make it cool. Like, again, I can't pay writers, but then I don't think there's not a big market for audio in the short form. So maybe this kind of trade-off, like you get this thing on the podcast, maybe you get some more followers from it, maybe hopefully, as well as you get to use the audio however you want. I was kind of hoping that'd be worth it for writers. And in the meantime, I'm gonna have 52 episodes out there in the universe, maybe more if it goes well, where it's constant advertising for me if I do well.
And
And I love short stories. Like, I miss short stories. I have on my phone a bunch of books. Some of them are like 30 hours long, 40 hours long, but every now and then I just need a palate cleanser. And I was thinking, there's this space for short stories where this could be fun.
that's
And who
fantastic.
knows if it becomes, maybe I can make some money out of it, if with ads or a Patreon thing, or maybe it becomes something even bigger where I can run it like a publishing company someday. Yeah, who knows? But for right now, my only focus is just have some fun and produce great stories. And if I do well, then no matter what, something good's going to come from it.
I love that attitude. I love that experimentation too. That is such a phenomenal. And then the other thing that you made me think about is, so you're potentially getting to work and getting to read some cool stories, getting to work with writers. At the end of a year's time, there'll be 52 different writers out there, or maybe not 52, because you might have some repeats depending if they write cross genre or whatever. But you'll have a number of writers out there where they're going to want to probably promote this story to yeah, hey, go listen to my story for free, which hopefully leads for them to find fans. But that could also, as you said, lead them to be promoting your work. I think it's brilliant, collaborative project.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking, like, especially if I'm pushing this towards writers, then more writers meet me, and who knows, someone might hire me to do their book someday.
Oh,
You know, it's
sweet.
yeah. As
Yeah,
long
and it.
as
Go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was going to say is my attitude going in is, of course, big dreams. Like, wow, this could become like a cool little pulpy audiobook publishing company. But I can't think about that. All I can think about is I want to make next week's story awesome, and that's really just the only attitude I can have going into this,
Oh,
and
that's
maybe make some
fantastic.
friends.
And yeah, and maybe make some friends along the way. That's fantastic. So, Eric, where can my listeners find out more about you and all the cool things you're doing?
I have a website with my name, ericbryanmoore.com. There's samples of some of my stuff on there. And then you can find me on Audible. For Pocket Pulp, you can just anywhere audio books, or sorry, anywhere what are they called? Podcasts. Anywhere podcasts are available. I think it should be on all the servers now. It's on Audible and YouTube as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today and talk about this cool new project.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to talk to a person after a year being locked inside.